Hello, I am Jake Collins, and this is my commentary for the 7th episode of The Mummy, the animated series, The Black Forest. We begin in London today, and we hear about this tablet that ancient Roman scholars have made that, when translated, is going to reveal the location of the Scrolls of Thebes. Is it now? It's not really part of the quest in the right way, that, is it? Following in the footsteps of Alexander the Great, trying to find out where he left the scrolls. It's a bit of an offshot, this random tablet. But of course, it introduces the reason for the main guest star in this episode, Albert Einstein. Here's a bit that is reminiscent of one of the films, The Mummy Returns, I think. Rick running on and off that double-decker bus. The trouble is, there was never a door there on those old London Routemaster buses, so that doesn't really work as a concept. I think there was a whole protracted chase sequence with the bus in the movie, so that's just a little bit of homage reference to it there. And then we get all this sodding about on Big Ben business, which I think the episode could do without, quite frankly. And that straddles the opening sequence, which we're going to have in a moment. So here is my review. Another top-drawer adventure in another interesting location. 10 out of 10. This is another brilliant episode with some interesting and well-used locations. The inclusion of Albert Einstein could easily have come across as just plain silly, but it's carefully judged and works really well. Alex demonstrates such excellent mental and physical strength and skill as he battles his way to the rescue that he proves beyond all doubt that any problems he's destined to encounter with his Medjai training really have nothing to do with his own innate qualities or abilities. We then get an appropriate and compelling look into the less ebullient side of Alex's character at the very end of the episode, and the conversation with Einstein that helps Alex get his head together comes across really well. On a related note, I find the voice work on Alex, which is always excellent, particularly well done in this one. Yes, as I was watching the episode just now, I did wonder, is this worth 10 out of 10, or should I have given it 9? And I thought, well, 10 out of 10 really comes from the heart, doesn't it? And in that review, I've mentioned the reasons I did give it 10. It's very good for Alex. It makes very good use of Einstein as a guest character. Perhaps it's not quite as good overall as the other episodes I've given 10-2, but I can see why those couple of aspects made me give it top marks, so I'll stick with that. I mentioned the voice work on Alex there. In this episode, and I'll say this during the whole Big Ben bit because I don't like it that much, the voice work on Alex in this episode, of course, is excellent as usual, but I think you really get to hear the differences in Chris Marquette's voice in this episode. Sometimes Alex sounds really quite old teenage, like he will in Series 2. Sometimes he sounds very adolescent, like he does in most of Series 1, very appropriately. There's even a bit, which I hope I'll remember to mention when we get to it, where he sounds like a real child rather than adolescent. And I think maybe some sort of scratch piece or audition piece line that they've included, because Chris sounds very much younger saying it than he does anything else in the series. And it is a sort of general remark that could be fitted into an appropriate place in the series without knowing exactly what it meant when you said it as an audition line. But there we go, hopefully I'll remember to mention that as we go. You notice Alex there stands up to Imhotep with the manacle when the two of them are together in the stairwell of Big Ben and things could go bad. Alex is like Rafael Nadal. he will try and fight to his last breath if necessary. Einstein. Here we go. Einstein's the only one who can solve this formula that reveals the location of the Scrolls of Thebes. I'm not sure that it does, or even sends them on the next stage of the quest, really. I know in the next episode, Weasler says to Imhotep, sorry about that detour to Borneo, which was useless, which is a little trick Einstein plays on Imhotep and Weasler at the end of the episode, making them go to Borneo for no reason. But does what Einstein has translated from the tablet actually be useful to the O'Connells and send them on their way to South America in the next episode? I'm not sure. I'll have to look out and see if that is mentioned. I was starting to doubt at this stage if Uncle Jonathan was going to be in the episode, and I was glad when he did turn up here on his motorcycle to join in the main action of the episode. I don't want to have too many episodes where we don't see him at all. He doesn't really do anything in this episode, anything important, but it's nice to have him around most of the time as one of the main characters, and his interplay, particularly with Alex, is an important part of the series. So I was glad when he turned up there, and then I thought, yes, I knew perfectly well he was going to be in this episode, really. He's in all the Black Forest bits with the evil trees and so on. But I did start to doubt it for a moment there, and was pleased to see him. Here, yet again, we get the telltale sand, like Merman's telltale seaweed, in Einstein's house. Not much beachfront in Berlin. That means Imhotep must have been here. Alex touches the sand and gets a vision of the Black Forest and the castle where Einstein is being held, and this is where Chris, as Alex, delivers a line that could come across as extremely silly after he's had this vision. I think I know where Imhotep's got Einstein. I mean, if you said that, even in context, if you said that in the wrong way, it could sound like an extremely stupid thing to say. But the way Chris says it with such conviction is absolutely brilliant and hits exactly the right notes. As I say, his voice work really does bring Alex to life and Alex's journey to life so perfectly. Yes, here we are with the typical Imhotep scene. This time he's raging and destroying the table, and Einstein's in the room. Other than Einstein being in the room, it's very much like most of the Imhotep and Weasler scenes in the series. And what does Imhotep say here? I shall send the spirits of the forest to do my bidding. Okay, so you can do that now, can you? I guess we'll accept that. That's one particular power for the episode, that he doesn't need a MacGuffin to help him with or anything. It just happens. And this bit coming up is what makes me think of and reference in my review there the old Medjai training, or the upcoming Medjai training. This sequence shows that Alex is at his best, which is excellent, when he's on his feet in the field in a practical situation, not jumping through hoops for Ardith and getting his head messed up and in a horrible state. When he's actually in the field, thinking on his feet, using his natural skills, he's brilliant. And all this ducking and diving and evading the evil trees really reminds me of Medjai training activities that Alex doesn't like and struggles with far more than actually doing it, as I say, in the field, thinking on his feet in a practical situation. And that's what Alex is best at. And you can tell that because he's the only one of the four of them who manages to escape from the evil trees here. And the physical and mental and tactical strength and skill he shows here is absolutely brilliant. Tries to use the manacle again, it won't help him. So, what does he do? He says, right, I'm going to go to the castle, no matter how many evil plants I have to evade, and rescue them myself. The manacle's not going to help me. And that's Alex the hero at his very best. And here he goes, doing all this ducking and diving and jumping and rolling to avoid these evil trees. It's a very long falling sequence with Rick and Evie and Jonathan, isn't it? But here we go, back to Alex. Again, some rather banal interaction between Imhotep and the good guys here. Isn't really nice banter and interplay. A few missing chances for that sort of thing throughout the series. Not these sorts of bits of the episode I remember when I am giving it 10 out of 10. It's Alex and Einstein, really. But there we go, as I say, a 10 out of 10 from the heart, and overall deserved. Here we go, killer Christmas trees, or as you might say, if you're a Digimon fan, needle spray, which Alex manages to avoid, of course. Plenty of mental agility, and as I say, physical agility. Here's a good bit of physical agility from Alex coming up in just a second. He turns falling down this hill into a nice roll, jump and run. And there's the castle from my vision. Again, he's been using his sketching diagram skills to help there. And here's a bit of better interplay between Imhotep and Einstein, where they manage to have a bit of back and forth. Time is relative, and death is forever. It's about the best you're going to get from Imhotep interacting with other characters in the series. And here's a sequence I really like with this killer topiary. Look, topiaries. Killer topiaries, as it turns out. And Alex says and does a very sensible thing here when he's being surrounded and threatened by these killer topiary animals. When in doubt, wait it out. Wonderful. He's not going to rush into any decisions, panic into doing something for the sake of doing something and make a mistake. Which is what a lot of people would do in this situation. But of course, Alex, relying on his natural skill and ability, waits his moment. And then uses some pretty impressive gymnastic physical skills to turn these two topiaries against each other. Absolutely wonderful. And they go in the moat, and he makes it into the castle. Even time for a bit of a quip there to the two fighting topiaries. And is this rusty old drawbridge handle gonna stand up against Alex and his newly quite manly shoulders? You bet it isn't. Again, only an average scene here between the good guys and Colin Weasler. Yes, it really is Alex and Einstein that made me give this episode 10 out of 10. It's really struck me there. It is a lot better when Alex is on screen, which is true in most episodes, but I particularly notice it in this one. And here is the bit where Alex rescues Einstein. And it has that line that I mentioned, with Alex sounding very childlike rather than teenage or adolescent, which I think may be an audition line or a scratch line or something like that. Alex recognises Einstein by his socks, Evie has mentioned. He always wears odd socks. Nice socks, says Alex in a very teenaged way. And then he goes on to, I'm Alex, let's get you out of here, in a very much higher, much more childlike voice. And I just wonder, was that a general audition line that could be slipped in anywhere in the series? Certainly Chris sounds a lot younger there than he does anywhere else in this episode or in this series. But of course, all his voice work as Alex, and indeed all the voice work in the series, is top-notch, excellent, very well done. It's just an interesting point, I think, to consider. Did they know all the time that Alex was going to be quite so grown up, physically grown up in season 2 compared to how he is in this series? Einstein makes a nice movie reference there. He says to Evie, he used to be such a reserved young woman, and Evie points out, as we know from the movies and the cartoon, fighting mummies can change a girl, and it certainly has. But yeah, it must have become clear to them, recording the series by this point, if Chris was going to continue as Alex in season 2, if there was going to be a season 2, and of course it would have been unthinkable for him not to continue as Alex, because then Alex wouldn't be Alex. The character was going to have to grow up a lot physically as well as mentally, emotionally. And of course, the way they do it with Alex's journey works really well. I do have certain problems, as you may have picked up, with his Medjai training and what it does to him and his mental state, and Alex has certain problems with it as well. But on the whole, his journey and his growing up, backed up by Chris and his changing voice, but always brilliant voice, works very well. So perhaps it's a happy accident that takes the show in a good direction, or at least a potentially good direction. Or perhaps, I don't know, were they planning it all along? Alex was going to be a kid in this series and a young man if there was a series 2. And Imhotep mentioned in the very first episode you would have made an excellent Medjai warrior, as I pointed out in the commentary. So was it the planned, some sort of version of what happened all along? Who knows, but I do find that interesting to consider and speculate about. And here, in this final scene, we get the other thing I mentioned in my review, where Einstein gives Alex a bit of a pep talk. Now, Alex, as I always say, is a wonderful kid hero, boy hero, and he accepts his destiny and embraces it with enthusiasm and skill. But of course, he's only human, he's not perfect, he sometimes gets moments of self-doubt, and he gets despondent and frustrated, particularly when he's doing his Medjai training. He gets moments like that, but even now, one has overcome him. The manacle's dicking me around, he's saying. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I'm never going to get the hang of it. It's doing me head in. And Einstein comes to cheer him up, pointing out to him, the universe does not play dice, my boy. Things will become clear and you'll be the master of them. And Alex is like, yeah! And he's all full of enthusiasm and skill for the journey ahead, and that scene comes across really well, I think, in the way they hoped it could and would. And there's an end to the episode. It was written by two people not from the usual writing pool. They have the same surname, and they did a very good job. Hopefully you'll join me next time for another episode that's done a very good job. Not quite a 10 out of 10 job, I see from my scores, but it's probably as good as this episode in many ways, and it's called The Cloud People.